Hi, I'm Father Jim Forson, and I'd like to share with you a few thoughts about the fifth Sunday of Lent. As I did last week, so this week, I'd like to read you the Gospel and pause from time to time, as there are some parts of it that can be a little bit difficult to understand. This is a reading from the Gospel according to John. Now a man was ill, Lazarus from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who had anointed the Lord with perfumed oil and dried his feet with her hair. It was her brother Lazarus who was ill. So the sisters sent word to Jesus saying, Master, the one you love is ill. And when we are talking about ill and they're calling Jesus, this isn't just the flu. This means that he is seriously ill, in danger of death. So when Jesus heard this, he said, This illness is not to end in death, but it is for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Remember, we had that same theme last week with the man born blind. And why born blind? So that God's glory could be shown. We see that same idea emerging again. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was ill, he remained for 2 days in the place where he was. And that's confounding because this is Jesus' good friend and he loves Martha and Mary. You're only about 2 miles away. Get up and go. But he doesn't. He remains in place. It would be like calling a priest and saying, my friend or my relative is dying in the hospital. Please go. And the response is, I'll be there tomorrow, maybe the next day. No, now. So it's a little confounding. If he doesn't hurry, Lazarus might die. Right. He remained in the place where he was for 2 days. Then after this, he said to his disciples, Let us go back to Judea. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now, Bethany was near Jerusalem, only about 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. That's almost a reprimand, if not a complaint. Basically, where were you? But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Now it's important to note that she is not asking Jesus for a miracle here. She knows her brother is dead. Dead is dead. Jesus said to her, Your brother will rise. Martha said to him, I know he will rise in the resurrection on the last day. Then Jesus challenges that faith of hers. Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? What a thing to be saying to someone who is grieving and confused, to be challenging the faith that she has, that it might grow and become greater. And she responds to him, Yes, Lord, I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who is coming into the world. When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary secretly, saying, The teacher is here and is asking for you. As soon as she heard this, she rose quickly and went to him, for Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still where Martha had met him. So when the Jews who were with her in the house comforting her saw Mary get up quickly and go out, they followed her, presuming that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was, she saw him. She fell at his feet, just as in an earlier story about Martha and Mary. Martha was the one in the kitchen doing all of the work. And where was Mary? Sitting at the feet of Jesus, learning. She fell at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would never have died. The exact same words that her sister used when she met Jesus. Again, almost a lament. Where were you, Jesus? When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her weeping, he became perturbed and deeply troubled, and said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Sir, come and see." And Jesus wept. And this is one of the more significant moments in the Gospels, in the story of Jesus. We see him so perturbed, so profoundly moved with emotion, hearing the women wailing, seeing Martha and Mary. Jesus himself weeps. And in a way, that's good news. Because who needs a God who's above it all? Who needs a God that cannot enter fully into what it's like to be a sorrowful human being? The fact that our God has come to be with us and cries right alongside us in times of sadness and death, that's the kind of God we really want. Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind man have done something so that this man would not have died?" Boy, doesn't that sound a little bit offensive? But yet, isn't it something that we all say all the time? Why hasn't God done something about all this poverty or all this illness in the world or all this hunger? Why hasn't God, been like God? So, Jesus, perturbed again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay across it. A cave with a stone in front of it? Does that sound familiar? Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the dead man's sister, said to him, "Lord, by now there will be a stench. He has been dead for 4 days." As I said before, she was not hoping that somehow Jesus would work some kind of miracle. She knew her brother was dead. Dead is dead. Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Jesus raised his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you for hearing me. I know that you always hear me, but because of the crowd here, I have said this, that they may believe that you sent me." And when he had said this, he cried out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out. Now, it's important here to distinguish between Lazarus coming out of the tomb and Jesus coming out of the tomb. The parallels are strong, and John does that intentionally, because Jesus, when he comes out of the tomb, that is resurrected life. What we have here with Lazarus is he's resuscitated. He's brought back to life, not resurrected. When you stop and think about it, Lazarus eventually will have to die all over again. But what we see is that he is being brought back to this life. The dead man came out, tied hand and foot with burial bands, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Untie him and let him go." Interesting, he says, "let him go," as in free him from death. Now many of the Jews who had come to Mary and seen what had been done began to believe in him. And there are two, I think, lessons, there are many lessons, but two lessons that are being taught here. The first one is Jesus' ministry is one of recreating the world. He comes to do what God initially did, to create this world of harmony. As what happened last week with the blind man, he wasn't restoring his sight. The blind man never had sight in the first place. Rather, Jesus was creating the world anew, recreating, as it were. And here with Lazarus, he is bringing something new into this world. He is recreating this world. And we begin seeing this idea that Jesus came into the world not just to fix all of the things that are wrong with it. Rather, he came to recreate this world and to turn it back into the world that it was when God once made it. And that raises the question, what in me needs being recreated? Not just something that needs being restored, but really something that needs being made anew. There's that song we sing in church all the time, "Create in me a clean heart." It doesn't just say recreate or give me back that heart I used to have. No, it's create in me. So I ask myself, we ask ourselves, what in me needs to be created anew? Where do I need recreation in my life? If I were to ask God for a favor, God, create this in me, what would it be? And a second truth, that lesson that's in this gospel is Martha and Mary, those are two remarkable women. I mean, here they are confronted with the death of their brother, and they are deep in their sorrow. And here's Jesus, late to arrive, undoubtedly confusing them with his late arrival, and Jesus challenges their faith. And any of us could easily imagine in a time of death when someone who we deeply love has passed and we're grieving, I don't want somebody to get in my face and challenge me. I would just appreciate a little sympathy, a pat on the back. And what does Jesus do? But he challenges them in saying, this resurrection that you've heard about, that's me. You live in me, you have life. You follow me, you have life. I'm the one come into this world to be able to bring new life, new creation. And it was so wonderful and remarkable about these women is in the midst of their grief, they can be able to say, yes, I believe. And I ask myself, when I'm in the middle of my grief, when I'm in the middle of the turbulence of my own world, do I have that kind of faith? Do I have the kind of faith of Martha and Mary where I can be able to say, I don't get it. God, I don't know why things are the way they are or why you're doing what you are doing, but I do believe somehow, some way, you are bringing something wonderful into the world. I believe that.